What's up, YouTube? This is True Raw for TV. Before I get into the subject matter at hand, if you would like to show love to this channel, if you want to donate to this channel, I'll put a link in the description box where you can do so if you choose to. Now, the first game of the NBA Finals is over. The first game of the 2019 NBA Finals. A game that the media was saying that, look, the Raptors pretty much have no shot at winning against this Warriors juggernaut. It's over. And the Toronto Raptors won relatively easily by the final score of I believe 118 to 109, and take a 1-games-to-none lead in this best of 7 series. Um, I still think Golden State's going to win this series. I think they're going to win this series in 6 games. I think that Golden State is going to regroup and take game 2. That's going to dictate the series. I think the Raptors are going to lose home court advantage. I think Golden State's going to win the next 2 games at home and take a commanding 3-games-to-1 series lead. I think that game 5, the scene will shift to Toronto, and I think the Raptors are going to win that game to cut the lead to 3-2. But I think that the Warriors are not going to let it go to the 7th game, and they're going to take this series in 6 at Golden State. I believe, and I could be wrong, of course, but I believe that Kevin Durant's going to make his return in this series. At some point, I just don't know exactly when. I got to give props to Ticket TV because he's one of the ones who has been leading the charge on this, and I agree with him 100%. The media has the media has been exposed in their hatred for Kevin Durant because they underestimated just how valuable Kevin Durant is to this club. What did you keep hearing from the media, who aren't going to acknowledge uh, their faux pas in this matter? They're not going to do that. What they're going to do is they're just going to spin it somehow. You know what I mean? They're going to talk about probably the Warriors, being without rusty. They're going to just say that, well, the Warriors were rusty, blah, 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 blah. Look, the Warriors need Kevin Durant. For instance, I'm going to tell you why they need Kevin Durant. Pascal Siakam had a career night as far as in playoffs. He had a career playoff high, 32 points on 14 of 17 shooting from the floor, um, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, a plus minus a point, +4, 2 blocks. Okay, 2 of 3 from 3-point range. Now, do any of us think that Pascal Siakam would have done that if Kevin Durant was guarding him? Uh, I think Kevin Durant is a very underrated defender now. I'm not saying he's um, Dennis Rodman on the defensive end, but he's a much improved uh, defender from his Oklahoma City Thunder days. Right, much improved defensive player. Um, I really do think that Kevin Durant would have been a difference maker in this game had he played. If Kevin Durant had played in this game, um, I think that Golden State would have won. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Um, Kevin Durant is a difference maker of epic proportions if he was playing in this game. Um, yeah, the Warriors did win 2 championships before Kevin Durant got there. But you know what? That Warriors team was a lot different from this Warriors team. They were a lot. First of all, they were a little bit younger. Um, Second of all, that team's bench overall uh, was much more talented than what we see now. That team was. You gotta remember that team had guys like um, who was on that team? You had Barboza. You had Martine Spikes. I remember being on that team. Harrison Barnes. You had a younger Iguodala, a younger um, what's his name, man? Still with the team. King of the mid range. Had the knee injury. I can't remember his name right now, but you guys know what I'm talking about. You know, there was other people on that team as well. You had a younger Andrew Bogut. You know that team, Sean Livingston. You know, and there was other people on that team as well that I just can't think of right now. This team isn't quite as talented overall, um, and not to mention that when you have these long playoff runs, it does wear on you physically. It does. Look at the Detroit Pistons of the 80s. They, starting in 1987, started having long playoff runs. Okay? 87, 88, 89, 90. By the 1991 season, that team was a little bit probably, even though physically they were not that old, they had a lot more mileage on them than most teams. And don't forget, you know what I'm saying, a lot of those guys had a lot of, like, especially Isaiah Thomas, before that team really got good, he had a lot of responsibility on that team as their primary scorer and playmaker. So even though Isaiah Thomas was only 29 years old, in basketball years, he probably was like more like 33, 34 years old already. And the Zeke of 1990 wasn't the same Zeke of 1985. But anyway, even Curry and Thompson, they're a little bit older than what you see physically. You know, just because of the playoff runs. I'm talking about from a basketball standpoint, as far as mileage is concerned. All right. So this team is still great, but with Kevin Durant, they're better, much better, and they're missing him. Another thing that pops into my mind is the people who make the asinine arguments that somehow Michael Jordan was, or is overrated because the Bulls won 55 games during that 93-94 season. But they forget certain factors. They forget the fact that Phil Jackson's the coach of that damn team. They forget that brilliant coaching staff that surrounded Phil Jackson, including the late Tex Winters. Okay, they forget um, the fact that the year before Jordan, the year Jordan last played with them, you still had like a lot of the older guys there from the late '80s and the earlier Bulls run. Well, by the 93-94 season, you had the people and the personnel there that would make up the nucleus of the later Bulls run. You know, you had Ron Harper make his arrival. You had Steve Kerr make his arrival. You had Tony Kukoc, who had been drafted, I think, a couple of years earlier, I think it was like 90 or something like that, finally make his arrival. Luke Longley make his arrival. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You had that younger nucleus finally come over that would be part of that great Bulls team, that Bulls dynasty of the late in mid late '90s. But they were a very good defensive team, but they were somewhat limited, and Phil got the best out of those guys. But with Michael Jordan, they reach a whole nother level. They went from being an overachieving 55 win team with Scottie Pippen in his prime to with Michael Jordan joining that team and becoming a dynasty. That's what Kevin Durant does for the Golden State Warriors, and that's what they're missing. You know what I'm saying? Kawhi Leonard didn't have a great offensive game tonight. I think he only had 23 points, only 5 of 14 shooting from the floor. I think it was 5 of 14 shooting from the floor. He was 3 of 6 from beyond the arc, 10 of 12 from the free throw line, but he had 8 rebounds and 5 assists. Um, Marc Gasol, think he had 20 points. Marc Gasol going on with 7 rebounds, 2 steals. Kyle Lowry only 7 points, but he did have 6 rebounds and 9 assists. Danny Green had 11 points on 4 of 9 from the field, 3 of 7 from beyond the arc. And I know that psychologically, Danny Green hitting that big 3-pointer to get things cooking tonight was a real mental boost to him because he's been struggling horridly, mightily, I'd rather say, throughout this playoffs. So I know that he probably feels good about that. Serge Ibaka, they didn't really need him. Van Vliet had 15 points on 5 of 8 overall shooting from the floor. And going on talking about the Warriors, Draymond Green had a triple-double, 10 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. I think I saw this as, including the playoffs and regular season, this is the 31st time in his career, playoffs and regular season combined, that Draymond Green had a triple-double. In those games now, the Warriors are 29-2. At one point, I think they were undefeated in games he had triple-double. All right. Steph Curry had 34 points tonight on 8 of 18 shooting from the floor, 4 of 9 from three-point range, and a perfect 14 of 14 from the free throw line. Klay Thompson had 21 points, shot the ball pretty decently, 8 of 17, 3 of 6. So it wasn't like their 2 top guys didn't play well. They're not playing the Portland Trailblazers anymore, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't Portland, all right? This is a whole nother level team. The Raptors are a potential championship level team, which also goes to show you that the Milwaukee Bucks don't really have much to be ashamed of losing to this team. Now, I don't think they're going to beat the Warriors because I believe that Kevin Durant's going to come back in this series. But if Kevin Durant, for some forsaken reason, for whatever reason, let's just say that injury is a lot worse than what people think it is. I don't think that's the case. But let's say that the injury is worse than what people think it is. And let's say Durant doesn't come back in this series. Now, if he doesn't come back in this series, then that changes the whole dynamic of my prediction. Then, who knows? Toronto might win this thing. And if Toronto does win this thing, ladies and gentlemen, if the Toronto Raptors do win this series, then, my friends, the media has a lot of crow to eat. A lot of it. A lot of crow. And Kevin Durant will truly be vindicated for being a tremendously gifted basketball player and a great player. It's not a knock on Stephen Curry or any of these guys. But Kevin Durant, to me, along with Kawhi Leonard, are the 2 best basketball players in the league. All right? And I can see the argument for Durant being the greatest of the 2. But those 2 dudes are the top guys in the NBA. And to sit there and say that, even infer that somehow the Warriors are a better team without him, is asinine and ridiculous. And people like Chris Broussard are fucking idiots. Fake preacher, man. I know a snake when I see one. He's a snake. He's a liar. Most of those pastors I see, they're fucking liars. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to the Toronto Raptors. And I hope that the Kawhi mania doesn't get out of hand. You know what I'm saying? Um, and I also hope that the people who claim to be Raptor fans during my comment section, other people's comment section, I hope you guys are still rooting for the Raptors and you don't evaporate before our very eyes. Like Thanos snapping his fingers for some reason when Golden State win this series. You know what I'm saying? I want to still see that love for the Raptors when, the Warriors win this thing. So that's all I'm saying. Gotta be a fan through thick and thin, not when things are just going good. Well, I've been a Raptor fan I never seen you, motherfucker. When did you come here? Never seen you before in my life.